Ever daydream about a life beyond the one you know? What if you were able to switch lives with someone else for a day? The Prince and the Pauper takes you on just such a riveting journey, promising to stir your imagination and provoke your thoughts. Mark Twain's enduring classic brings us along for the journey of a prince and a pauper living in 16th century England, both identical in appearance but living worlds apart. As the two undergo a near magical life swap of each other's starkly different lives, they experience a profound exploration of identity, life lessons, compassion, and the concept of just society. In this tale of mistaken identities, this timeless narrative opens doors to a whirlwind of emotions and self-reflection, pushing you to look beyond the surface and question societal norms. Twain provides us with a chance to critically think about society through a different lens, presenting a striking revelation of societal norms and human values. Despite being centuries old, the profound themes of The Prince and the Pauper still resonate even in today's world. And in this blink, we'll guide you along Twain's journey through class and societal privilege, while challenging preconceived notions of wealth and poverty, making you ask yourself, how different would your own life be if you were born in a different set of circumstances? Living a dual life. The Prince and the Pauper begins its saga in the bustling city of London in a time of royalty and riches juxtaposing abject poverty. In this vivid setting, we meet our seeming doppelgangers, Prince Edward Tudor, the longed-for male heir of England's King Henry VIII, and Tom Canty, a young pauper surviving the slums. From their births, the boys' lives couldn't be more dissimilar. Born in a royal estate known as the Palace of Placentia, Edward is the child of wealth, nobility, and privilege. His world is one of exquisite artwork, sumptuous banquets, and opulent courts. He's surrounded by advisors, subjects, and servants, all bowing to his whim, teaching him the art of governance. But despite these luxuries, Edward's life is far from perfect. He constantly battles the loneliness and the monotony that also accompanies the rigidity of royal life. In stark contrast, Tom Canty only knows a life of poverty, born in a hovel in the slums of Offal Court. His days are filled with hardship, constant hunger, and occasionally the wrath of his drunken father, John Canty. Tom's realm is one of grime, destitution, and despair. However, within him burns a flame of ambition and curiosity that lights up his dreary world. He relishes stories of knights and nobility, dreamily imagining the wonders of royal life. Fate intertwines their paths when, one ordinary day, Tom Canty manages to sneak into the royal palace grounds, driven by his curiosity about noble life. Intrigue stirs when the Prince and Pauper come face to face and are awestruck by their startling resemblance. They become quickly acquainted, sharing the fascinating details of their lives. They marvel at the stark differences between their realities, differences which appeared to exist merely because of an accident of birth. Acting on a spontaneous idea, the boys switch clothes, seeking to sample each other's lives for a brief while. Each is enveloped by a sense of thrill and excitement for the journey they are about to undertake. This harmless disguise, however, has unforeseen ramifications. Not aware of their swap, the palace guards mistake Edward for Tom due to his ragged clothes, and he is swiftly ejected from his palace. Simultaneously, Tom, now in the prince's royal garb, is mistaken for Edward. Wandering unnoticed into the royal hall, he finds himself thrust into a position of unimaginable power. The unsuspecting palace inhabitants bow before him, thronging him with flatteries and treating him with utmost respect. The palace servants, oblivious of their mistake, revere Tom as their prince, nurturing within him a sense of royal entitlement he had only ever dreamed of. Meanwhile, Edward Tudor, dressed as a pauper, is faced with the brutal reality of Tom's life. His royal stance and articulate speech fill the London laymen with amusement. They scorn him and laugh at his tales of being a prince. Edward, unable to convince them of his true identity, grapples with this shocking new environment, a drastic departure from his cushy and respectful place inside the palace. Thus ensues the compelling journey of the prince and the pauper, two disconnected halves of an early modern England trying to understand a life beyond their own. Perspectives and misunderstandings. As the story unfolds, Tom Canty and Prince Edward are launched into uncanny worlds, and as they walk in each other's shoes, they experience unforeseen trials and tribulations. Safely ensconced within the palace walls, Tom's foray into noble life takes a dramatic turn. He is ensnared in a sea of elaborate meals, courtly protocols, and a dizzying array of unfamiliar faces and titles he is expected to recall. Initially, the comforts and privileges of the palace seem to make for a sweet existence. However, soon enough, he discovers that this world is not just about feasts, luxury, and grandiose. It's a world teeming with responsibility and expectations, forcing him to confront the complexity and pressure of royalty, contrary to the idyllic picture he had painted in his mind. Tom painfully stumbles through court rituals and struggles with his royal studies of Latin and law, much to the bemusement of his private tutors. His unfamiliarity with royal manners and protocol also raises several eyebrows among the staff and visiting dignitaries. However, his innocent charm and unconventional approach to his duties also bring a breath of fresh air to the monotonous royal life. There are moments of confusion and awkwardness, but there's something endearing about his mistakes. It adds a human touch to the palace that had long been missing. Meanwhile, Edward, the rightful prince, now robed in rags, is thrust into the harsh realities of life outside his sheltered palace. His eloquent language and regal demeanor are met with laughter and mockery. His claims of princely identity are dismissed as madness, and despite his haughty protests, he is quickly brushed off as a street urchin. Edward quickly realizes that his royal blood and title hold no value in this grimy, ruthless world. He encounters a world where people fight for survival, where brutish laws of the streets replace the refined, courtly ones he's familiar with. Facing cold nights, hunger, and abuse at the hands of other street children, Edward develops a first-hand understanding of the hardships endured by the common people. He is also confronted by the brutal authoritarian measures of his father, King Henry VIII, as he witnesses the unjust treatment of the poor, helpless under the monarch's rule. Edward's encounters steer him head-on into an unfiltered view of the harsh realities of class divide. The boy prince, who had been long sheltered from the plights of the ordinary citizen, is confronted with scenes of gross inequality and poverty. His heart begins to ache for a chance to correct this balance. Simultaneously, Tom, the pauper, who had only dreamt about royal affluence, comes to realize the burdens carried by the one who wears the crown. He is bombarded by political decisions he is scarcely able to comprehend and is required to adhere to a plethora of strict royal protocols. He grapples with the unexpected challenges that accompany the royal title. As both boys continue living each other's lives, they grow frustrated with the misunderstandings. They long for a return to the comfort of their familiar worlds, yet they are trapped in an exchange that starts to shine a light on the great divide that exists between their distinctively different worlds. They realize they have much to learn about the realities of life, their own small existence, and the larger societal fabric within which their lives are intertwined. They continue to make their paths through these parallels, leading the way to life-altering lessons in their unanticipated journey. Learning and growth. As the plot moves towards its climax, the young boys, Prince Edward and Tom Canty, each have much to learn from the strains of living a life that is not their own. Edward, who has been traversing London's unforgiving streets, is now far from the privilege and comfort he had known as a prince. His journey is a harsh roller coaster, testing the limits of his endurance and patience. In this grim new life, he experiences the gamut of fear, hunger, and solitude, the daily colloquy of a street urchin. Despite these challenges, the young Edward, with his intrinsic piety and royal blood, bears dignity and earnest courage even in the face of adversities. He repeatedly surprises those around him by standing up against injustice and advocating for the rights of the people he encounters. In contrast, within the comfort of palace walls, Tom grapples with a different set of challenges. The responsibilities of royalty, the intricacies of governance. All of these appear daunting. He stumbles through royal rights, grapples with diplomatic duties, and tackles courtly politics. Surprisingly, the pressures and demands don't crush his spirit. Instead, they shape him into a character of patience and wisdom. Despite the wide gulf between his actual status and his present life, he adapts to his accidental ascendancy with fortitude and humility. The climax of the story comes when Edward runs into Tom's abusive father, John Canty. In an attempt to save him, a soldier misidentifies Edward as Tom. Edward seizes the opportunity to announce his rightful identity, shedding his pauper disguise. His regal attitude and detailed knowledge of palace life start to draw the crowd's attention. Seeing Edward's commanding behavior and familiarity with the royal life, the soldier decides to escort him to the palace to confirm the truth. Back at the palace, Tom is afraid of the consequences as Edward returns and claims his true place. He fears punishment and a harsh return to his former life of poverty. However, Edward surprises him as he warmly acknowledges Tom's inadvertent role in his transformative journey. He expresses gratitude for the experiences that have allowed him a first-hand understanding of his kingdom's wide range of subjects. At the end of this extraordinary journey, it becomes clear that both boys have grown by leaps and bounds. Edward turns from a naive prince into a just and understanding ruler, ready to assume his royal duties with empathy and wisdom. His horrid experiences have opened his eyes to injustice and suffering that was previously hidden from his royal view. This stirs in him a desire to be a benevolent ruler who understands the realities of his poorest subjects. On the other hand, Tom transforms from a naive pauper to a wise young boy who has tasted power. His stint as prince has taught him about authority, responsibility, and the harsh demands of leadership. The palace's luxury could not hide the impossible task of ruling an entire nation. He longs for his simple home, realizing the grass isn't always greener on the other side. In the end, The Prince and the Pauper underlines the beauties of human resilience, empathy, and evolution spurred by unimaginable circumstances. Both Edward and Tom re-emerge into their original lives, transformed by their respective experiences, both focusing on the greater good of humanity. The journey concludes with us savoring the heartwarming reality that the boys haven't merely swapped their lives, but also their perspectives and ideals of leadership, compassion, and social justice. Let's recap. Mark Twain's The Prince and the Pauper is a captivating narrative that takes us through an extraordinary life swap of two boys, identical in looks, but worlds apart in societal status. Via the vastly different experiences of the Prince and the Pauper, we're able to witness the stark contrasts of both lives, allowing us to reflect on how different our own lives could have been under alternate circumstances. What truly emerges as the novel's core essence, however, is the nuanced understanding of the human condition afforded by the dramatic switch of lives. Tom's journey from the pits of poverty to the helm of power broadens his horizons, teaching him to navigate the world of politics and authority, while Edward's misadventures among the paupers enlighten him to the daily realities and struggles of the common man, instilling in him empathy and a commitment to justice. It attaches a human face to the distant realms of royalty and pauperdom, transforming the way we perceive these societal constructs. In essence, The Prince and the Pauper is a tale of transformation, shedding light on the facets of society not often probed and thus making way for heightened understanding and enriched perspectives. Okay, that's it for this Blink. Thanks so much for listening, and if you can, please take the time to leave us a rating. We always appreciate your feedback. See you in the next Blink.